Namaste. Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I'm Dr. Padma Sugavanam, lecturer of music in Sri Venkateshwara College of Music and Dance, Tirupati, and a professional musician as well. Today we are going to be studying a paper on Indian aesthetics and fine arts, Bhakti saints of North India. In this module, we will be studying the lives and their contributions of some great mystic saints and poets of North India. We will also learn about the impact that their work had, the impact that their lives had on society at that time as well as on society today. Let us start with the life of one of the most famous mystics of India, Sant Kabir Das. Sant Kabir lived in the 15th century Common Era. What we remember and love about Kabir so much is that his teachings went beyond the boundaries of religion, community, caste and creed. Followers of Kabir belong to almost all communal groups, all religious groups, all ethnic communities in India. His followers call themselves the Kabir Panth. They are a different sect of religious people themselves. Kabir was born to a Hindu widow, it is believed. There are not too many details about his early life, but these are the small bits of information that we have. He was born to a Hindu widow and he was abandoned as a little baby because the mother was afraid of infamy. This little child was found by a poor Muslim couple, Neeru and Neema, who were themselves childless. They happily adopted the child and called him Kabir. Kabir in Urdu means great. It's also one of the names of God. Neeru and Neema brought up Kabir with lot of love and taught him the family profession, which was weaving. Kabir himself became a weaver. You can see the picture of Kabir weaving on your slide. Though Kabir followed the family profession, the fire, the thirst for knowledge was very much ablaze in him. He wanted to somehow improve his knowledge. He wanted to somehow advance spiritually. But how could he do this? He was a poor boy. He had no means. But he set his sights on Guru Ramanand of Varanasi. He decided that he wanted to become his disciple. So Kabir devised an interesting plan. Guru Ramanand used to bathe in the Ganges every day on one particular ghat. So the little boy Kabir went and lay down on one of the steps. Guru Ramanand stepped on him by mistake and said, "Ram Ram." Then the little boy got up and said, "Gurudev, I have now received mantra diksha from you and I have become your disciple." The Guru was so impressed by the boy's sincerity and his thirst for knowledge that he immediately took him under his wing and started teaching him all the spiritual practices of his school. It is here under Guru Ramanand that Kabir learnt about Nirguna Brahman, which later on became the core of all his philosophies. On your picture on the slide, you will see the little boy on the steps of the ghat and his Guru accepting him as a disciple. Now Kabir grew spiritually from strength to strength. He had his own take on religion. He had his own take on a good life. He accepted the good aspects from all religions around him, from Hinduism, Tantric Buddhism, Southern traditions, the philosophies of the Nath Yogis, Islam, etc. At the same time, he also rejected many aspects of religions, some like idol worship. He criticized the caste system. He criticized many other social ills, and in that sense was also a social reformer. In his core idea was that one should internalize God, should look for God within yourself and not search for it outside. Let us look at this with a song, Moko Kahan Dhoonde Re Bande, Main To Tere Paas Mein. I am right with you, I am right next to you. Why are you looking for me outside? Let us listen to this song now. मोको कहाँ ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में। मोको कहाँ ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में। न तीरथ में न मूरत में, न एकांत निवास में, न मैं क्रिया कर्म में रहता, नहीं जोग संन्यास में। मोको कहाँ ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में. And the song continues. Kabir Das wrote a book called Bijak, where he describes many philosophical theories like Brahman, Atma, Karma, Punarjanma, etc. He was able to seamlessly fuse Bhakti Marga with the Sufi ideas of mysticism. His compositions like Dohas, Shabads, Sakhis, they became so popular with the public that his teachings were incorporated into the Guru Granth Sahib, the holy book of the Sikhs. And till date, Kabir is one of the sons recognized by the Sikh religion too. Let us now move to the state of Maharashtra and learn a little about the life of a saint, Tukaram. Tukaram was born in a small village called Dehu around the Pune-Mumbai area in the 17th century. He was born into a farming family which was quite well off. They were very comfortable, but at the same time they were very pious. They took their Wari trip, the sacred pilgrimage, every year to Pandharpur in the Ashadha and Kartika months. As tradition and custom went, Tukaram was married at a very early age to Rukma Bai. Since Rukma Bai was of poor health, he was later married again to Jija Bai, who took care of all his domestic needs. Life was going on smoothly for a while, but suddenly tragedy struck. Tukaram lost his parents and his sister-in-law in a single day, and his brother Savji, his elder brother, he became a little vexed with worldly life. He gave up his life and became a sannyasi and left home. Tukaram was not able to handle so many losses at a time. He consequently lost interest in family finances. He lost interest in handling his farms. He was gifting away money left, right and center, and his family started getting into more and more troubles. Then famine struck. Rukma Bai, his elder wife, died of starvation, and soon after he lost his son as well. This was too much for Tukaram to handle. He left his home, he went to the nearby forest and meditated continuously for 15 days. After the 15th day, he attained realization. Then he dedicated his life to the service of Lord Vithoba. He came back to his village, renovated the village temple, and spent all his time singing bhajan and kirtan in the local temple. One day, Lord Panduranga and Sant Namdev came to him in a dream. They said, Tukaram, it is time you start composing poems. Tukaram said, I have no experience, I have no education, I am not a literary person, how would I get the inspiration? Then the Lord himself promised that I will be your inspiration. Compose poems on me, in praise of me, in your full devotion. Tukaram started composing compositions which were called Abhangas, devotional poems in praise of Lord Vithala. In another composition, he also mentions the name of a Babaji Chaitanya and calls him his guru. But mostly he accords that status to Sant Namdev. As the popularity of Tukaram started growing, people started congregating to listen to his kirtans and his mesmerizing music. Jealousy was a definite follower. The local scholars, especially one particular Brahmin, was very jealous of the status Tukaram had attained and wanted to ruin him somehow. Therefore, he created a ruse and asked Tukaram to throw all his compositional manuscripts into the Indrayani river. Tukaram was guileless. He threw the manuscripts in the river, but the Lord did not want these priceless gems to be lost to the world. So he came in a dream to his disciples, the disciples of Tukaram, and indicated to them where the manuscripts could be found. And true to that, the manuscripts were in exactly that place, purely undamaged and clean as ever. The great King Chhatrapati Shivaji was a big devotee of Tukaram. There were many days where he sat at the feet of the Sant and listened to his beautiful kirtans. He even begged him to accept him as his disciple and said, "I will leave my kingdom. I want to become a kirtankar just like you." But Sant Tukaram reminded the king of his duty, his dharma, and said, "The path of bhakti is open even to people who follow their day-to-day duties. It is not necessary for one to give up one's life and then only take up the path of devotion." Being thus advised, Chhatrapati Shivaji went back to his kingdom and followed his dharma as a ruler and followed the path of bhakti as well on the side. Sant Tukaram believed in God with a form, Saguna Brahman. He did not like to equate God to himself. He preferred the path of bhakti to the path of mukti. The greatness in Tukaram's songs is that even till date, people in the state of Maharashtra sing his songs. Not just people in Maharashtra, even people all over India, especially the south. There is a great movement of Abhanga Kirtana even in the south of India. So far his music has pervaded the local cultures of people, whether they understood the language or not. Thus was the greatness of the songs of Tukaram. Let us now listen to one Abhanga. Bolava Vithala, Pahava Vithala, Karava Vithala, Jiva Bhava. Bolava Vithala, Pahava Vithala, Karava Vithala, Jiva Bhava. Yene so se mana झाले हाव भारी, येणे सोसे मन झाले हाव भारी, देता आली बीठी सावकाश. बोलावा विठ्ठल, पहावा विठ्ठल, करावा विठ्ठल, Jiva Bhava. And the song continues. Let us now study the life of a princess who became a saint, Sant Mirabai. Mirabai was born to Rajput King Thakur Ratan Singh and Veer Kumari in Kudki in Marwar district of Rajasthan. As every princess is, she was educated in the Shastras, music, philosophy, horse riding, sword fighting, arts, etc. But her parents died at a very young age and she had to be later raised by her grandfather Rao Duda in Marta, Rajasthan. Her grandfather raised her with great love and care, where she continued her education and also spent all her spare time immersed in Krishna Bhakti. There is an interesting story of her younger days where it is said that she saw a procession, a wedding procession from her palace and asked her mother, "Mother, who is that on the horse, all decked up, looking so good?" The mother said, "He is the bridegroom." Then Mirabai very innocently asked her mother, "So who is my bridegroom?" Her mother pointed at the little Krishna idol in her room and said, "That is your bridegroom." The mother hardly knew that the little girl would take it so much to heart that from that tender age, Mirabai considered herself the consort of Lord Krishna, and she believed that she had married him at that point in time. So one can understand how she moved from her education and spent all her time immersed in Sankirtan, Bhajan, singing, dancing, playing, feeding, dressing that idol of Krishna. But as tradition goes, she was married at the age of 13 to the prince of Chittor, Bhojaraja. He was also called Kumbharana. Though she got married and the prince Kumbharana was very fond of her, she was not able to lead a normal conventional married life because in her mind she was already married to Lord Krishna. Rana Kumbha understood to a certain extent her state of mind but wanted to give her time to come around to normalcy. Mirabai was steadfast in her faith. She used to join the common folk in singing and dancing in ecstasy. She would not worship the royal goddess Parvati, instead focused all her attention on Krishna. This did not go too well with the royal family. They were not able to accept and understand her ways. In their jealousy, they harassed Mirabai in many ways. There goes a story that the sister-in-law sent a basket with a serpent to Meera, saying that it was a garland for worship. But when Mirabai opened the basket, there was no serpent. Instead, there was a garland with a little Krishna inside. Another time, they sent her a cup of poison, telling her it was nectar, prasad of Krishna. She offered it to the Lord and drank it, and lo, it turned into nectar. Vexed by all these miracles happening and unable to let go of their jealousy, finally, Kumbharana and his family tell Meera to go and jump into the river and drown. Mirabai was accepted even that with joy in her heart. With the name of the Lord in her lips, she sang and danced her way to the river, ready to drown. But there her Giridhar Gopal came, held her hand and stopped her and said, "It is time for you to come with me to Brindavan." And that day, Mirabai left Chittor, moved to Brindavan to be with her Lord. In Brindavan, she met Guru Sant Raidas, with whom she already had much instruction as a youngster. She continued immersing herself in her devotion in a little Govinda temple in Brindavana. By this time, Rana Kumbha started to realize what a big mistake he had made. He went back to Mirabai, requested her many times, begged her to come back to the royal family, and said he would not trouble her in any way. But Mirabai was now a changed person. She was a free spirit, a free soul merged with Krishna. She refused to the king. She said, "More to Giridhar Gopal, dusaro na koi, jaake sir mor mukuta, mero pati soi." That Giridhar Gopal with the peacock feather on his head, he is my husband. At that point, Rana Kumbha understands that Mirabai is a spirit to be left free, and he returns back to Chittor. Mirabai continued her bhajan, kirtan and devotion to Lord Krishna in Vrindavana. One day she went to meet a great saint, Jiva Goswami, who was also residing in Vrindavan at that time. There is an interesting story there too, where Jiva Goswami sends message to Meera saying, I will not meet with any women. I do not meet with any women. Mirabai smiled and said, "As far as I knew, Krishna is the only Purusha in Brindavana. All others are Stris and all others are Gopis." When Jiva Goswami heard this message, he understood what a great soul Meera was and immediately begged of her forgiveness. Thus Mirabai danced and sang the praises of Krishna, moving from village to village, and spent the last years of her life in Dwaraka and merged with the Lord in 1546, Common Era. She composed several bhajans which we sing in our homes all over India even till date. and was a big influence on the Vaishnava Bhakti movement of North India. She was living proof that one can rise above worldly riches, position and power and still lead an austere life filled with Krishna Prema. Thus was the life of Mirabai, an embodiment of love. Next, we look at Sant Tulasidas. Goswami Tulasidas was a famous saint, poet and a reformer of the Awadh region. He is famous for composing the Hanuman Chalisa and the Ramacharitmanas, which is considered a masterpiece. The greatness of his works is so much that people venerate him as an incarnation of Maharshi Valmiki. He was born in Chitrakuta in 1532 Common Era to Hulsi and Atmaram Dubey. Even his birth was very mystical in nature. He resided in the womb of his mother for 12 months. And when he came out of the womb, his face looked like that of a 5-year-old. He had all his teeth intact as a newborn. And the very moment he came out, he did not cry. Instead, he said Ram. And that prompted his parents to call him Ram Bola. He was called Ram Bola by his parents. But unfortunately, being very superstitious, his parents abandoned him, thinking he was born in an inauspicious birth star and that would bring about misfortune for them. And he was left. His mother's servant girl Chunia, finally she took up the child and raised him. At the age of 5, he was adopted by Guru Narahari Dasa, who was a disciple of the famous Guru Ramanandacharya. At that tender age, Tulasidasa took Diksha and adopted the life of an ascetic. Through his journey, he gained knowledge of the Vedas, Vedangas, Vedanta, Jyotisha, Sanskrit, etc. from Guru Shesha Santana in Varanasi. Then, at a point in time, Tulasidas started composing poetry in Sanskrit language. But something very strange used to happen. Every morning, he used to compose poems and write them down, and every night they would vanish. This happened continuously for 8 days. He would come back in the morning, compose, and by night it would vanish. After 8 days, Tulasidasa started getting worried. Why is this happening? But then Lord Kashi Vishwanath came in a dream of his and said, start composing in the local language of Awadhi and your compositions will shine like the Samaveda through time. Sant Tulasidas took up the compositions in Awadhi. He composed several works like Dohavali, Kavitavali, Geetavali, Krishnavali, Vinaya Patrika, Baruai Ramayana, Parvati Mangal, Hanuman Chalis, Hanuman Ashtak, and most famously the Ramacharitamanasa. Tulasidasa's life was studded with many miracles. Even the story of his composing Hanuman Chalisa was one such. It is said that hearing about all the miracles that Tulasidas was performing, King Akbar summoned him to the court and asked him to perform a miracle. Tulasidas on the spot composed Hanuman Chalisa, and immediately hordes of monkeys poured into the royal darbar and started creating havoc. King Akbar realized that this is a great sale amidst us and fell at his feet, begged his forgiveness, and became a good friend of Tulasidas from that day onwards. Let's now listen to a small excerpt from the Hanuman Chalisa.
जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर जय कपीस तिहु लोक उजागर रामदूत अतुलित बल धामा अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी कुमति निवार सुमति के संगी कंचन बरन विराज सुबेसा कानन ऐसा।
Including these, there are several other instances where Tulasidasa performed miracles. He also had many darshans, direct sightings of Lord Rama, Lakshmana, Shiva, Parvati, and most importantly, Hanuman. In his mind, Lord Rama was much more than an avatar of Vishnu. He was the supreme being. The Saguna, that is the visible form, and the Nirguna, the formless version of Brahman, were one and the same, and that was Lord Rama. He also believed that bhakti was the only route to true salvation. Let us now look at the lives of other saints called the Ashtachhap. Like the Dasak Butta, Alvars or the Nayanmars, they were a line or a group of saint composers who excelled in their devotion to Lord Krishna. The Ashtachhap were followers of Pushti Marga or the Vallabha Sampradaya, which was founded by Saint Vallabhacharya in the 15th century. You can see a picture of Vallabhacharya on your screen. Their philosophy was called Shuddhadvaita. It should not be confused with the Advaita of Adi Shankara. Their philosophy was slightly different from this. The followers of this sampradaya, the Pushti Marga, were devotees of Srinath temple in Nathdwara in Vrindavan. And main form of worship in this sect is done by the rendering of the songs of the Ashtachhapa saints. Now, who are the Ashtachhapa saints? Ashtachhap, or 8 replicas as it is, are 8 saints: Surdas, Kumbhandas, Krishnadas, Paramanandadas, Govindaswami, Chitswami, Nandadas and Chaturbhujdas. They were each 4 disciples of Vallabhacharya and of Sri Gosai. The main philosophical concepts in the songs of the Ashtachhapa are bhava, that is personal experiences with Lord Krishna. The poet conceives of himself as a part of the life of Lord Krishna and imagines situations and enacts situations along with the Lord. These form their own personal experiences. This, coupled with another of their philosophies, is Leela, or the divine sport of the Lord. The Ashtachhapa did not believe in philosophical debate or intellectual pursuit of the ultimate truth. They believed in personal experience. They believed that one should personally feel, personally all the emotions, all the experiences that one has with God has to be had personally. This was their main tenet and philosophy. The most important poet of the Ashtachhapa was Surdas. Surdas was a blind poet who experienced Krishna with his inner eye. He lived a grand 108 years and composed 1,25,000 padas. Unfortunately, only 8,000 of them are available to us today. Surdas composed mesmerizing poetry in the Vraj Bhasha, just like all other poets of the Ashtachhapa. Now we have studied the lives of so many saints, so many poets who have poured their hearts out, taught us their spiritual learnings, taught us the route to lead to ultimate upliftment and communion with the Supreme Being. They have shown us the way to cross the ocean of mundane existence. The songs of devotional poets and this kind of poetry is so much an integral part of the culture of India that we cannot imagine any function, any religious activity without these bhajans, kirtans and songs. And most importantly, why should one study the lives of such saints? It is for the simple reason that we must get inspiration from their elevated lives to have a goal of elevating ourselves to greater and greater heights. Thank you.